two more poems. We'll start with Half Caste. It's a brilliant poem to actually listen to being read. So we start with the structure. It's got a short opening stanza to grab attention. Excuse me, standing on one leg, I'm half caste. He's actually opened that up really quickly there, just to make us stop and think straight away. Perhaps a response to the person who's actually, a person's actually called them that. And he's actually made the connection between one leg and half. The idea of half, is actually been brought into us here straight away. There's no punctuation. It's free verse the whole way through, and that obviously shows he's really speaking his mind. Direct address, you is actually used quite a lot the whole way through. And then with the second and the third one, it's almost like he's speaking to society. And then maybe the first and the fourth stanzas is actually just speaking to the person with who's the person who's irked him enough to actually make him bring this part off. And it obviously ends with a small piece there to actually so at the beginning he's referenced I'm half caste standing on one leg, and again at the end he mentions the half in the other story, so it has a strong ending because it ties into the opening paragraph as well, stanza, Okay, so meaning, this is about identity, obviously. Anywhere he says I'm this or I'm that, and again right from the start I'm half caste, he's talking about how he sees himself, because obviously half caste here is obviously the mixing of black and white skin in this case, and the term actually means half made, and it was used to refer to people who were mixed. The second one is obviously stereotypes, because the person that's actually got an idea of him there, or perhaps racism, obviously using the word ignorantly, half caste, when it's derogatory, meaning half made, not fully finished. So obviously that's not a nice thing to call someone. And obviously the idea of language and how language has changed. So basically, obviously there was a time when this was acceptable, and now it became unacceptable, perhaps within the last decade or two. So this gives the idea about language and how that actually changes. And obviously he's using his own informal language the whole way through. I shouldn't say informal, I should say dialectal language the whole way through, which is obviously relevant to the culture from which he comes from. So you've got the images there. He got halves all the way through, the half caste weather, the half canvas, etc. So it gives us the idea he's trying to reinforce the whole time about something being incomplete. You've got the image. I mean, you really get a sense of him standing there questioning the person who maybe called him half caste, and he's really proud the whole way through it. He'll stand up for himself. He'll say, explain yourself. What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? And obviously it feels like he's actually getting a little more angry and tense the whole way through. And obviously when standing up himself, he mentions whole things at the end in the images, which comes across to us as actually shaming the listener. It's like, well, all of the things that you mentioned, I'm saying I'm half. Well, actually, you're only half concentrating on me. You have to come back with all of your eye, the whole of your ear, the whole of your mind, etc. So he's shaming the listener there, and you get this image of the person maybe being chastised. So the language, we've got this direct address all the way through. You explain yourself. It's almost like a command as well. Explain yourself. And there's a very proud tone throughout. Obviously someone who's really in love with themselves in a positive way, as in, they see the positive in themselves when people may be choosing to see the negative, even if it's ignorantly. Another point for language then, you've got popular references supporting the arguments when you've actually got it up here. So you've got like Picasso and Tchaikovsky, famous artists and famous pianists being mentioned, obviously, to show that they've used different parts of their art, to different halves and parts of their art to actually construct a beautiful whole, same as he's saying I was put together as a beautiful whole as well. You've got the language, the questioning, what do you mean when you say, what do you mean when you say? Obviously the language there again is very direct, so it gives a very kind of forceful tone to the poem. So what does it make us think about? Well, it makes us think about the words we use, and obviously some things that we use, say for example like the word wicked, and how that's obviously changed over time, or sick, how that's changed over time as well. It might also think about people's pride and where they come from and their race, and how they won't let people be ignorant of them and of their culture, and obviously that's true of a lot of John Argos poems. And you've got obviously being open-minded, so a person actually not being kind of half closed-minded, not really thinking before they actually say anything. Obviously there's many countries around the world, especially in Arab countries, I know they refer quite openly to black people as niggers just because it's the only way they know it, but they don't know the historical connotations that actually go with it, etc. So we move on then to Love After Love. It's a short poem which is quite powerful, and this was really, really well liked because I think it's one of those poems that's for a certain time in people's lives. Hopefully you're 16, it's not really been a poem you've needed to refer to for the emotions in it. But anyway, structure, so you've got 4 different free verse stanzas which are honest and says what needs to be said, so basically no words are really wasted here, it's just kind of telling the person exactly what they need to try and feel good about themselves again. And the free verse basically means it's not trying to follow an order or some kind of set pattern. You've got the enjambment, which makes you hold on a lot of the words here: elation, mirror, heart, etc. So you really kind of stop on those words, and they're supposed to uplift you and really ask you to reflect. And you've got the short sentences which invite you to savour, so they're really short, like eat, give bread, etc. Sit. So they just kind of stop you, those short sentences, and they really make you savour the kind of the feel and the warmth that comes from this poem. So what is it about? It's probably about breakups, because this person's probably broken up with something. So the person you're supposed to love is yourself after you've loved someone else, and obviously that's gone wrong for whatever reason. It could also be about a relationship with God, maybe something that you had faith in or something that you worked with didn't really work out for you, and obviously now you're going back to God, and obviously that comes through from all this religious imagery of giving wine, giving bread, which is very strong in the Christian tradition. You've also got the relationship with oneself. There will time when you will greet yourself. Obviously there you will greet yourself, and that is about the relationship with self. You need to learn to be strong and whole and trust in yourself before maybe you can trust other people again and move on. And also it's about patience. So obviously there's a lot of kind of slow things here, so that the time will come, the idea of time actually coming, where you will try and get to know a stranger, obviously, so you need patience to actually get to know someone. And obviously the sitting, so you're stopping, sitting there, really soaking and absorbing, just being patient. You've got a lot of religious imagery the whole way through when it comes to images. Obviously the give wine and the bread again, and the sit and the eat, and that pausing there, that's really good. And obviously knowledge of self, obviously line from the Bible, know thyself. The photos of the past, so it's basically this idea here, this image of the past, and this isn't just like the kind of past of a past lover, but it's probably always dealing with any experience. It could be a parent in this case, it could be something like that. So it's just the ideas, the photos, that it could be anyone from the past, and obviously taking control of it and handling it. So in controlling those pictures, moving the photographs, etc., and the desperate notes, is you kind of taking control of your life. So that's an interesting image. And obviously the room, like you can think of the pictures that are actually dressed around this room, and obviously when you're peeling your own image from the mirror, maybe that's the only constant, or you've got an idea of yourself in the mirror, or an idea of yourself that needed someone else, but obviously he's asking you to peel that away, to get past it and get to the real you in some way. So the language all the way through is very positive. You've got repetition with the give, again emphasizing this is strength, and maybe it's again another religious thing, is that maybe to actually receive, then you really got to give first. You've also got the alliteration, the love letters. Now that might actually be a bit not necessarily sarcastic, but kind of like have a little bit of a dig at it. Those love letters, maybe he was actually saying they kind of take down the love letters, and maybe in a way he's saying that they weren't actually really love letters, because really you weren't properly in love with yourself at that time, perhaps. But anyway, the alliteration's there to actually obviously go with the stereotype of loving things that people do when they're in love as well. So it kind of touches on the stereotype, but I really get the feel there that he's kind of knocking it, and obviously he's definitely saying remove it, but I don't think he thinks very much of things like love letters. So what does it make us think about? Well, the effect on us, it makes us think about caring for oneself, and obviously looking after yourself, and obviously making sure that you're in a good position in your relationships, and a good position with yourself first. And obviously you don't let people to make a fool of you, perhaps in relationships. It's about keeping hope, even when obviously things seem bleak and dark, and obviously they don't seem very positive for you. Then you actually keep your head up and love yourself in that. And it's also a good effect on us on thinking about how people use religious ideas and images for strength, because obviously he's taken a lot of things there that can be taken from Christian religion to and symbols in the idea of the giving of bread and giving of wine to celebrate life, and to actually take real images of strength from that.